Hi, this is Tim of the 1916 Company. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. I am still tmosso at thewatchbox.com. It is still in the description below. It is still your purchase and pricing email question line for inquiring about this or any watch you see on our platforms. Reach out to me for pricing. I am still tmosso at thewatchbox.com. Today, we discuss a watch launched in 2013. This is the Lange Söhne 1815 Rattrapante Perpetual Calendar. It is all of those things and even a little bit more. 41.9 millimeters in rose gold. The watch is 14.9 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 49.7 millimeters with a 20 millimeter spacing between the lugs. So of course 1815 means we have Arabic numerals on the dial. A watch that gives you an alternative to a dotograph if you prefer this aesthetic, and you can see it as a large watch. So I'm going to recommend it for wrists my size or larger. So 16 centimeters circumference, you're good to go. Anything smaller, you're going to want to seek a smaller 1815 or a smaller dotograph. Now, it's not super thick, but what really helps with a sleeve here is going to be that domed bezel, allowing a cuff to slide up and over and fit quite well. The watch feels substantial. If you like a heavy luxury watch to remind you of its importance, its expense, and just how prestigious and special it is, weight is a tangible way of experiencing that, and this watch delivers. Now, some Lange watches have folding clasps. They are rare. This is something generally not included as standard on most Lange watches, and so it offers you both more weight and more precious metal, but also more protection against accidentally dropping your watch. Rolling around to the case flank, we have a cylindrical case. Everything's in high polish. We have lugs that are stepped out. This was a feature that co-founder Gunter Blumlein decided that the brand could use in the early 90s to set its designs apart, and it endures on almost all models to this day. We have a domed bezel. We have a somewhat inset case back. So while technically a 14.9 millimeter thick case, this case back actually sinks into your wrist, and the watch wears more like it's about 13 millimeters thick when it's actually on the wrist. Now we have a couple of different functions here. All chronograph pushers, I'm able to split the seconds and decide whether the gap between, say, two runners around a track or two race cars around a course, I'm able to tell if that gap is waxing or waning. And you can see Lange makes things easy. One hand is blued and one hand is rose gold, so you can tell them apart quite easily, just like that. That's how you gauge the waxing or waning interval. Other things to think about: the perpetual calendar. It does not need to be adjusted until the year 2100. It can deal with irregular length months. It can deal with leap years. The moon phase display has an even longer duration, as it is sensitive to setting intervals. So once every 122.7 years, you will set this moon phase. Lange moon phases are always that type with the 135 tooth gear. Now, it's also a solid gold disc, as Lange moon phase discs are always made of 22 karat gold, and that's what we have here. There is a hacking or stop seconds function that brings everything to a halt and allows me to synchronize to a reference time. You can also see that we have some coaxial registers here. So we have the running seconds and the moon phase. We have the date and the day of the week. We have the leap year phase and the month. And then we have instantaneous jumping chronograph minutes with a little power reserve. And I'll wind the watch. You can see that power reserve moves as I'm winding the timepiece. It is a manual wind watch. The power reserve is 42 hours. Now, the dial is made of sterling silver, so it's precious metal inside of precious metal. And you can see it has a little stepped track outboard for reading minutes, seconds, and fractions of seconds. On this dial, we have rose gold. We have blued steel, blue moon phase. We have little red highlights on the sub-registers and at the quarters. And of course, the silver white of the dial base. Alpha hands for the hours and minutes. Sub-register hands, generally leaf style and lancet style for the sub-seconds. Now, if you do fall 5 days behind, let's say the watch stops and you lose 5 days, instead of having to look up the calendar and find out what the moon phase is, this is very simple, very simple. You just pull the crown out and you use this one large indexing button, and that indexing button will allow you to jump all of the calendar indications in sync. So the day, the date, the moon phase, the month, even the leap year indication will all jump in sync. So you can see this pusher is larger than the others. That's what it is for. Also important to mention, this watch is an absolute carnival on the case back. So you're looking at Caliber L101.1. It is large to suit this large case, protected down to 30 meters. You can see it features not one, but two column wheels for the split second function and the primary. So this is your split column wheel. You can see that there are little arms that hold that split-second wheel as it runs, and there's a decoupler system. Patek and Lange use this. At the very top of split-second chronograph design and engineering, you'll find a system that disconnects the split-second wheel and drive from the rest of the movement so that it doesn't drag and slow down the entire watch, robbing it of balance amplitude and perhaps causing it to lose time. So when the split's not active, it is decoupled from the rest of the movement. Column wheel feel is legendary at Lange. You can really feel it, and both column wheels are equally crisp. Double your pleasure. Taking a quick look here, some of the details, 5-position adjustment, and you can see, I'll try to show you the wheel the best I can. The wheel sits underneath several bridges, and it features an overcoil hairspring. It beats away at 3 Hertz. The overcoil hairspring allowing the 5-position adjusted watch to keep very consistent and even time in every position. 43 pivot jewels, and you'll notice beautifully decorated. Everything here that is blue is fired blue steel. Everything that is mirror polished or straight grained is stainless steel. Everything that has a golden hue to it, bridges and plates, is German silver, which is a nickel copper zinc alloy, and the copper gives it that golden hue. We have streifen or stripes across the bridges because we're not in Switzerland. These are not Côte de Genève. You can see on the edge of every bridge, I'll do my best to show this to advantage here. This is a better angle. On the edge of every bridge, as well as on the edge of every steel chronograph component, mirrored beveling. Very difficult to do on some of these tiny parts, including the springs of the split system. We have a few pivot jewels set in golden chaton, a nod to the way jewels would have been set in bridges and plates during the pocket watch era of Lange watchmaking in the 19th and early 20th century. And we also have freehand engraving on 2 separate structures. One is a bridge for the chronograph clutch, one is a bridge for the balance, and so you can see this lovely floral or florisant, some call it banknote scrolling, and it's done freehand, and you get twice as many of these freehand engraved structures. You can also see along the periphery as well as under the primary bridges there's an engine-turned perlage, and the watch features both black polished and fire blued screws. In general, the blued screws are used for fixing components in place and locking them down, whereas the polished screws in almost every case relate to the adjustment of the mechanism, either the chronograph or the underlying drivetrain. And so that is the symbolic and practical difference between the colors. They're designed to alert the watchmaker as to the function of the jewels. And then all of the wheels feature satination, making them quite beautiful. If you love this watch, reach out to me. I am tmosso at thewatchbox.com for all of your purchase and pricing questions.